Boots went out there and landed this beautiful counter left on Avanesyan and dropped him. A little while later, Avanesyan doesn't answer the bell for the 6th round, and the fight gets waved off. Now, all in all, it wasn't exactly an unexpected result. We saw Boots going into this one at like an 18, 19 to 1 favorite, just ridiculous odds. Everybody figured what was going to happen. It was in his hometown, crowd going crazy. Everything was set up for him to have this big performance. But Boots is at this point in his career when it's not just about a big performance. It's not just about a knockout. It's not just about going out there and impressing everybody. I mean, he's going out there and he's calling out a guy in Terrence Crawford who's number 1 or number 2 on everybody's pound for pound list. Who do you got at number 1? Is it him or is it Usyk, right? Basically, that's what the question is, which is why Terrence responded after the fight, jumps on Twitter or jumps on X and puts this out there. World-class fighter, huh? Double standards. And the reason he's making that comment is because of all the things that have been talked about him over the years and the way that Boots has just been relentlessly calling him out, saying that he wants all the smoke, saying that he's the best at 147 pounds, and he's calling out Crawford. Now, in all fairness, we know that fight's not going to happen. There's no reason to make it happen because there's no money in it at this point. Oh, Terrence Crawford is at a point in his career when he's proven everything that he needs to prove to everybody else. He's only interested in 2 things, and he wants to make both of those things line up as much as he can. Those are the big money fights, and those are the legacy fights. Neither one of those things Boots offers. He's not going to be a big money fight, and it's not going to be a legacy fight. It's just not where he's at. These guys are at 2 different points in their careers. Boots, on the other hand, is a guy who's 27 years old, who I think you can easily make the argument that he's the best welterweight in the world. When you're talking about 147 pounds, this man is the best. Now, the problem for him is that even though welterweight has just been a phenomenal division historically, right now it just doesn't get a lot of buzz. Like, we just came off of a great era for welterweights, dating all the way back when we're talking about Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao and going all the way up through Keith Thurman and Sean Porter and Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford and Danny Garcia and all these guys that we've been seeing. Phenomenal fights for a long time, but none of those guys are there right now. None of those big name guys, none of those huge pay-per-view stars, none of those legacy-making fights are at 147 pounds. So a guy like Boots is sitting there and he feels like he's a generational type talent. He feels like he can go out there and just make it happen against anybody, and he needs a dance partner. He needs a great person to go up against. We've seen this problem plague people throughout the years, and it's not an ideal spot to be in. He's sitting there. He's got one of the belts at 147. Who else do you want to see him fight after this? He goes out there, and from an offensive standpoint, it was great. There's nothing that you can say negative about Boots from when you're talking about from an offensive standpoint. If we're talking about him physically, he's got the height and he's got the length. He's got 74-inch reach at welterweight. Switch hitter. He's got the hand speed and the power. He's got the combination punching. He goes to the body well. Whatever you want to say, right? He's got all of those things. Now, if we're talking about him defensively, that's a different story. And personally, I believe that's exactly what Terrence Crawford was referencing. You can't be a world-class fighter without a world-class defense. It doesn't have to be the absolute best in the game. Everybody's out there is not going to be Floyd Mayweather. Everyone out there isn't going to be flaunting their defensive skills like they're Pernell Whitaker. But man, Boots gets caught with a lot of shots. And it's not just this fight. You know, when we were watching this fight, we see him get caught with all these punches, and we were seeing Sean Porter say, I think he's just becoming a little lackadaisical in there. And look, we know that guys will go out there and lose focus during the course of a fight. When you're talking about the course of a 12-round fight, guys will lose focus at times, even guys who are at a world-class level. People have talked about it with Tyson Fury. People have talked about it with a lot of guys over the years. I don't think that's what it is when we're talking about Boots. I mean, maybe that's what it is. But what we're talking about at that point is that he's losing focus over the course of a 5-round fight, because that's all this was, multiple times, because he was getting caught a lot. And we're talking about it happening every single fight, because he's getting caught with these shots every single fight lately. Now, I'll be the first to admit, it looks like he's never stunned. Dude's got a chin. He can go out there and he can make it happen. And maybe, just maybe, he doesn't care. Maybe that's what we're dealing with here. Maybe we're dealing with a guy, he's like, I don't care, man. I go out here, in the very first round, I feel these guys out. They've got no power. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to walk through it and just beat these dudes up, beat them down. That's it. End of story. All I'm interested in is going out here and getting this stoppage, flaunting all the athleticism and the talent and the offensive skills that I haven't put it on, dude. Okay, great. Then that's exactly what we saw. But I'll tell you what, I don't think that's the case. You know, I think it's a little part of that. I think he really feels like he's the superior fighter and he's just going to go in there and he's going to get it done and he's able to eat these shots and he's able to make it happen. But I also think the dude doesn't have the defense to be able to deal with a guy like Terrence Crawford. He's got the offense to be able to go out there and test Terrence Crawford's defense and, you know, put that at a world class. He doesn't have the defense. He gets hit too many times to deal with a guy who's at that level. You know, to deal with a guy who can counterpunch that crisp, to deal with a guy who's got that type of power. Even though we know the fight's not going to happen, Terrence Crawford, we're talking about him at 154. He's not going to come back down to 147. It's not going to happen, all of those types of things. Could Boots go out there and beat a guy like Mario Barrios or Stanley Ennis or Brian Norman Jr., right? These other belt holders at 147 pounds. Sure, you can go out there and you're not going to need a world-class defense to beat those guys when you have the offense that Boots presents. That's not what I'm talking about. Boots is out here talking about fighting the best guy. He's putting himself in that category. So, basing it along those lines, talking about him as far as that's concerned, man, he's got to tighten up that defense. He gets caught with too many shots. That's number one, man. Number two, I hope he doesn't try to chase Terrence Crawford because that fight isn't going to happen. He's 27 years old. He's in a historic division, even though the division isn't popping right now. Even though when we talk about, when you're talking about the biggest stories in boxing or the biggest names in boxing, we're talking about guys at lightweight. We're talking about guys even at junior welterweight at 104. We're talking about heavyweight with the rematch between Usyk and Fury. We're talking about a lot of different things. We're always talking about Canelo, right? We're talking about Tank as individuals. We just don't be talking about welterweight right now. Nevertheless, there's a very good probability that everybody that we see at 140 pounds right now, for the most part, will eventually make their way to 147. There's going to be people right now who are coming up the ranks at 147 who prove themselves. I'd love to see Boots just clean this division out and then just plant his flag in the ground, stay there as absolutely long as he can make the weight. Just stay there and do everything he can and catch the whole next generation coming up. Because if there isn't buzz in the division right now, there will be buzz in it later. If there's not guys in there right now that are really just drawing the attention of the fans, there will be later. 147 pounds is just too key of a weight point. There is always going to be highly talented athletes in that division or on their way through that division. And if Boots stays there, if he snatches up these belts, at least, I know, even if he were to snatch up all 4 belts, we all know that sitting there and maintaining and holding all 4 belts for years, it's an impossible thing with the way these organizations go and the way that they enforce their mandatories and everything. So even if he snatched up all 4, he couldn't hold them. But if he snatches up all 4, ends up holding on to 2, maybe 3 of them, depending on how things going, and he just is the man in the division and everybody knows it, everybody's going to have to face him as they come through. He's going to end up getting those big fights then as it goes on. And it probably won't take as long as you think. He's not going to be waiting till he's 35 years old to start getting fights like that. So, but we'll see. Maybe he can't make it that long. Maybe he does want to chase a big fight and try to get up to 54 or something. I mean, his father said in the post-fight press conference, we're going to clean out the division at 47, then we're going to move up to 54. If Crawford's got a belt at 54, then we're coming for it there. We'll see how it all goes, man. But that fight isn't going to happen. So I hope that it's out of his mind. He seemed really irritated in his response at the post-fight press conference, just probably because people have been talking about it for so long and deep in his heart. He knows that that's a fight that's not going to happen. Nevertheless, we look at him go out here and he just beats the brakes off dude for the most part. But like I said, it wasn't exactly unexpected. So, let me know. What did you guys think of this one? What did you think about that lack of defense? Who do you want to see him in there against there next when we're talking about it? Because Mario Barrios is talking about potentially getting a fight with Manny Pacquiao in the fall. If that fight goes through, how do you think that one goes? Should Boots be getting the winner of that one? I mean, what if Manny Pacquiao was to win that win and then we saw Boots step in there with Manny Pacquiao? Now, look, I was always a huge Manny Pacquiao fan. That's not exactly a fight I want to see because I think Boots smashes him at this point in his career. I think he goes out there and he puts it on him, stops him, possibly an early stoppage, mid-round stoppage, something like that. Pac just doesn't have the punch resistance. He's far past it at this point in his career. But imagine if we just saw like the version of Manny Pacquiao that beat Miguel Cotto step in there against Boots 3 months from now. Imagine what that fight would be like. But either way, let me know what you guys think. What did you think about this performance tonight? And what do you want to see next from Boots?